Immigrant children and parents separated at the border could get a second chance at asylum in an agreement to settle lawsuits against the Trump administration. The City Council is poised to extend funding for large tent shelters that house the homeless, but a new report shows the tent solution is falling below expectations.
We try to inform to the young people how their mothers and the grandparents used to go to the market bringing their own materials, the plastic or canasta.
And looking to the past to ensure a cleaner future. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A surprising development for families separated at the U.S.-Mexico border. A federal judge in San Diego is considering an agreement between the Trump administration and the ACLU. That means hundreds of separated parents could get a second shot at asylum. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero has more.
The agreement includes a number of provisions that would make it easier for separated families to win their asylum cases. But it has two main points. Under the agreement, hundreds of parents with removal orders could get a second chance at asylum by redoing the first phase of the asylum process, known as a credible fear interview. That includes those whose claims were denied. The agreement also says that in rare cases, deported parents could come back to the U.S. ACLU attorney Lee Gallant called the agreement an important but insufficient step.
At the end of the day, we still have thousands of kids who may have been permanently traumatized. So while we're happy with this step, we all need to continue to remember how horrific this policy was and the damage it's done to so many children.
The Department of Justice declined to comment on the agreement. More than 400 children remain separated from their parents. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The city of San Diego's 3-bridge shelters for people who are homeless could get funding to stay open through next June. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us this comes as expectations for the shelters have fallen short.
The San Diego Housing Commission voted Thursday to renew operating agreements with 3 nonprofits running the shelters. The tents were opened last December as a way to transition people into housing. But a report presented to the Housing Commission said that 75% of those who went through the shelters did not find housing. Keeping the temporary shelters open through next June will cost $8.4 million. That's nearly $1 million over earlier projections. The Housing Commission says additional money will go toward expanding the number of beds and services provided. Target goals for transitioning people into housing are also being lowered. The San Diego City Council will vote to approve the updated shelter contracts next week. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
More than 450 people in San Diego County took their own lives in 2017. It's a 5% increase following 3 years of holding steady. The troubling numbers were released today in an annual report by the Suicide Prevention Council. Another key finding in the report, nearly 20% of youth considered suicide. County leaders say the numbers underscore the need for everyone to know the warning signs of suicide, including drug and alcohol abuse, dramatic mood swings, withdrawal, and hopelessness.
We need every individual, we need every family, every organization, every business, everyone out there to understand that we all have a role to play. And that role might be in our professional lives, getting trained and learning how to do a risk assessment, or it might be in our personal lives, just being prepared to have those conversations with our family and our friends.
The county offers free training on suicide prevention and intervention, and a county-funded crisis hotline is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 888-724-7240. A hit to San Diego's status as one of the safest big cities. Today, the San Diego Association of Governments released mid-year numbers showing violent crime is up. Here's the breakdown. Rape cases were up 13% compared to 2017. Aggravated assaults were up 3% in the first half of the year, while homicides and robberies were down compared to the year before. Overall, violent crime is up 2%. Homelessness and poverty continue to be big problems for California. Latest numbers from the U.S. Census report show the poverty rates in the state continue to be the highest in the nation, despite the fact that the state has the 5th largest economy in the world and a record low unemployment rate. But analysts say most Californians are not experiencing the benefits of the state's booming economy, and the primary cause is the lack of affordable housing.
At the local level, it can be sometimes hard to find places where people want to build housing and to build momentum for supporting the development of more housing. There's also, California has a really complex set of regulations at the state and local level that govern, where you can build housing and how long it takes to build it by the time you get through all those processes.
Last year, the state legislature passed a package of bills designed to help promote the production of more affordable housing. And while analysts say this will help, it will be years before the effects of that legislation will be seen. A possible victory for the Sierra Club. A Superior Court judge has tentatively ruled in its favor in a case involving greenhouse gas emissions from a new housing development. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the case could set a precedent.
The Sierra Club attorney, Josh Chatton-Brown, says the County of San Diego promised in 2011 to offset increased carbon emissions from new housing developments with programs to improve air quality in San Diego County.
But he says the county is now approving new housing developments, but promising to mitigate for increased greenhouse gas emissions with carbon offsets elsewhere in the world. He says the lawsuit blocking such strategies could set a precedent.
Throughout the state, agencies are looking at San Diego to see what happens here. So I do think that there is a real potential for this case to have statewide impact.
Chatton-Brown says the county needs to find programs within the county to reduce greenhouse gas emissions rather than buying credits in other parts of the world. He says the lawsuit could affect Newland Sierra, a proposed development of more than 2,000 homes in North County that San Diego supervisors are poised to consider later this month.
County supervisors will vote this summer on 7 new developments involving about 10,000 new homes. The county refrains from commenting on the carbon offset issue because it involves ongoing litigation. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Tijuana's city council has approved a ban on plastic bags. It goes further than California's ban and is expected to have a positive effect for San Diego. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero has the story.
Carlos
Alberto runs Tacos El Tigre Toño, just a few blocks south of the U.S.-Mexico border. He says he heard about Tijuana's plastic bag ban from a client.
And I asked him, how are we going to give you the tacos? And he said, well, we have to improvise.
More than half of Mexicans work in the informal economy, selling food and goods on the street. Alberto says he's not sure everyone's going to be able to comply with the ban if there aren't cheap alternatives.
Poor people who work, if they sell plastics, we're going to use them because we need to.
The ban approved by Tijuana's City Council will go into effect before the end of the year. But vendors will have 2 years to adapt before facing fines. The ban is expected to help San Diego's and Tijuana's beaches. A river valley in Imperial Beach has long been choked by plastics washed in from Mexico. Environmentalists are launching a public awareness campaign called #Desembolsate, or Unbag Yourself. Lori Sylvan with the border environmental group Proyecto Fronterizo says students will be traveling to grocery stores to talk to consumers about how they should start bringing their own bags.
The message is in the name, and basically it means, kick the habit of using plastic bags or get rid of the plastic bags.
Ana Aguiarta is the binational liaison for the River Valley's Research Reserve. She says she thinks it'll be easy for Mexicans to adapt. Plastic bags didn't saturate Tijuana until NAFTA brought mass consumer culture to the city in the 90s. Before that, Tijuana residents used their own baskets and other containers.
We try to inform to the young people how their mothers and the grandparents used to go to the market bringing their own material, the plastic or canasta.
She says Tijuana's leaders were inspired in part by California's ban. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
This could be the year of the rookie, as Democrats pin their hopes on a new strategy to take back the House.
Alyssa Slotkin represents Democrats' best hope in some time to win Michigan's 8th congressional seat.
Talk about campaign finance reform.
But the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee didn't handpick the former Pentagon official to run.
I actually didn't know what the DCCC was. I was in the national security world. My husband and I had never been to a political event. We had never made a political donation. It just wasn't our world.
National parties used to frown upon rookie candidates running for House seats. Not anymore.
I think the idea that I haven't been a politician, I haven't been doing this as a career, I'm not a legacy politician in any way. I think that's a positive in this cycle.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm running for Congress.
Same goes for Lauren Underwood, a registered nurse who is running in a suburban Chicago district.
I am a millennial woman of color, also a first-time candidate, and I'm running in a very competitive congressional district. And so what that means is I bring the diverse experiences of my life to this campaign.
Of the more than 50 candidates running in districts that seem to offer the best chance for flipping GOP seats, nearly 2/3 are seeking office for the first time. That's a significant increase over 2016, when less than half of those running in targeted districts were first-timers.
We're seeing a lot of rookie candidates in the 2018 cycle, especially on the Democratic side, because of really, I think, the aftermath of the 2016 election, which seemed to galvanize, excite quite a few people from different segments of the electorate,
including a surge of progressive candidates, such as primary winners Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York,
and there are so many reasons,
and Ayanna Pressley in Massachusetts.
I still believe
how well this year's group fares may determine whether Democrats pick up the 23 additional seats needed to seize control of the House. Underwood is ready to do her part.
I am certainly prepared to win in November. We have circled Election Day, November 6th.
Rookie candidates are less of a factor for the GOP.
We're seeing fewer first-time Republicans because, frankly, Republicans have more incumbents.
I think people feel like, the crop of congressmen and women have had their opportunity to make change, and they haven't gotten us there.
These Democratic newcomers are hoping to make good on their own opportunities and ride a blue wave to Washington, D.C. Mike Householder, The Associated Press, Lansing, Michigan.
Conversations around prison reform often do not include women, but reports show they face increasing hardships while incarcerated and after. In the last 30 years, the rate of female imprisonment has grown twice as high as that of men. NJTV's Michael Hill reports.
I thought, I'm not going to get a job with my background, or how I'm going to get on my feet, where am I going to stay? So it was very discouraging at first.
That's what convicted robber Delmarche Allen thought weeks before her release from prison and serving her mandatory 3 years or maxing out, and before the Volunteers of America came knocking with its Safe Return program and plans to help Allen get her driver's license, housing, a job, and other necessities and services.
I came out and they stuck by their word 100% of the way.
Allen is one of the fortunate women leaving incarceration to have the state-funded Safe Return in her corner.
I think the needs of women are more complex than the men.
Among them, child care. Who's been caring for the minor children who live with 60% of the women imprisoned? Mothers could lose custody. Their children can wind up in foster care. Advocates say if those re-entering mothers get a job and housing and want their children back, they could be hit with owing child support from the day they leave prison. Another issue, a stigma from their own families.
We've collected data for years about family involvement, and we see a higher rate of family involvement for all of the men that we serve than we do for the women. And we went back to the women and asked them, what do you attribute this to? And from their words, what they said is it's a lot less acceptable for women to go to prison than it is for men.
Lydia Thornton served 4+ years for theft by deception and forgery. She says another hindrance for women re-entering society is housing.
As women, we are probably more easily victimized in looking for somewhere to just sleep.
More vulnerable.
Much more vulnerable.
While prison reform has led to a decrease in men behind bars, not so much for women in the U.S., thanks to drug and property crimes. The Sentencing Project says the rate of growth for female imprisonment has been twice as high as that of men since 1980, and it credits more expansive law enforcement efforts, stiffer drug sentencing laws, and post-conviction barriers to reentry that uniquely affect women. The female prison population, it says, stands nearly 8 times higher than in 1980.
You know, I was a first-time felon.
Munira El Boumani, who's a construction worker and truck driver now, served all 3 years for possession with intent to sell heroin in the mid-1990s.
I was quite bitter about the fact that being a first-time felon for a fourth-degree drug offense, you know, sending me to prison wasn't going to help me at all.
Boumani founded an organization that advocates for better conditions for women behind bars and for better policies and laws outside of prison. She says she supports Assemblywoman Yvonne Lopez's bill, Dignity for Incarcerated Primary Caretaker Parents Act. It would provide parenting classes to inmates and create an overnight pilot program for inmates and their children, among other things. Lopez says the bill seeks to restore the rights of incarcerated men and women in connecting with their children and in accessing basic rights while incarcerated.
Not the one I'm pushing. I'm for it, obviously.
Thornton, who writes for several advocacy publications to improve conditions in reentering, is among those who testified about legislation to reform Edna Mahan.
Because you've created a culture there where it's okay.
Thornton says it's gratifying when prison guard received a 16-year sentence for his crime and will have to register as a sex offender for life. Progress, yes, she says, but prevention and protection would be better in and outside of prison. Michael Hill, NJTV News.
That story is part of Chasing the Dream, a public media collaborative project covering poverty, jobs, and economic opportunities in America.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, we're on the ground as the Carolinas brace for Hurricane Florence. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Only the leading edge of Hurricane Florence has reached land, but crews from the Midwest to Florida are standing by to help get the electricity back on once the storm knocks out power.
Anytime the trees get that kind of wind, 100 miles an hour, trees are going to come apart. They take out the power lines. We'll just, after the water recedes, we'll go in and do what work we can right away.
Almost 30,000 people are already without power as the storm approaches, and tens of thousands are in shelters. As all eyes are on Hurricane Florence, we have not seen much change in our weather here in San Diego, but a slight dip in temperature is expected. Daji Aswad has the forecast.
Thursday wasn't too bad out here across San Diego. We remained warm, and that's going to be the case into your Friday. We do notice on the map cooler air is to the north, but we'll have some cooler air rolling through for your extended forecast. But for tonight, we don't see much in terms of wet weather. There's some cloud cover out towards the north. Once again, here in Southern California, going to be looking at our typical pattern. Low clouds building for tonight and into the early morning hours. So if you're out towards Oceanside, you'll see some cloud cover with a low of 58 degrees. Borrego Springs, you're cooling down to 71. And if you're in Mount Laguna, cooling down to 55. San Diego, we're at a low of 68 degrees and looking at the partly cloudy conditions for tonight and seeing those into the morning hours. But as we break through the cloud layer into your Friday, we'll be looking at sunshine here in San Diego with a high of 80. Still to be some partly sunny skies out towards Oceanside with a high of 82 and 106 in Borrego Springs. If you're out towards Mount Laguna, topping off at 79. And to this weekend, high pressure off the coastline, going to keep things very tranquil here across much of California. We do notice we have a trough dipping in towards the northwest. That's going to keep them cool as well as wet. So if you're headed to Seattle and Portland, you're going to get a few sprinkles of showers coming across your area. Still keeping an eye out on Florence. That has the potential to track its way inland Friday, making landfall out towards near Cape Fear, North Carolina, bringing plenty of rain, hurricane force rain and wind to that region. Here at home, well, we remain in a very typical pattern, but once again, temperature is going to be feeling a little cooler as we get past this weekend. Sunday at the coast, topping off at 79 and remaining in the upper 70s through your Tuesday with mostly sunny conditions throughout the day. And if you're in the inland areas, we're going from the lower 90s into the upper 80s for this weekend and early week. And we'll remain in the 70s here in the mountains, sunny and pleasant, and plenty of dry days ahead out towards the deserts as well. Slightly cooler here, but still in the triple digits. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Daji Aswad.
A medical study on human patients involving gene editing is showing encouraging results. AP reporter Kathy Young has the story.
Had some wild times and tough times, right?
45-year-old Brian Mado and his partner Marcy Humphrey looked through years of memories, including one that made medical history. Last November, Mado became the first person to participate in a groundbreaking study. It aims to permanently change his DNA by editing a gene inside his body.
When they administered the infusion, I was very nervous, a little bit scared.
Now researchers are sharing early results on Mado and 3 other patients. For some, there are promising signs.
Still very early in the clinical trial, to be too positive, but at the same time, I'm still very encouraged by what we've seen to date.
I did that sample at 6 a.m.
Like Mado, the patients all have Hunter syndrome, caused by lack of a gene that makes an enzyme needed to break down complex sugar molecules. Those molecules can build up throughout the body like a toxic waste.
It can cause all sorts of effects in terms of joint stiffness, heart disease, airways, and in a severe form, they have cognitive impairment.
Mado has a milder form of the disease and knows he's fortunate.
I've met a lot of people that have died at a young age, in their early teens.
The treatment aims to replace the missing enzyme by using proteins called zinc fingers to cut his DNA and insert a working gene.
We can now have the liver produce, the missing enzyme and thereby hopefully prevent all the toxic effects we see in Hunter syndrome.
6 patients are currently in the study. Mado and another patient were given a low dose. Urine tests suggest it has not improved their total levels of the harmful sugars, although one type was lower. However, 2 others who got a medium dose had their sugars decline 51% after 4 months. Doctors say it isn't proof the gene therapy is the reason, but it's a very good sign.
It does suggest the possibility of making enzymes, so only with time if we see the sustained reduction, will be more significant.
Another 2 patients have been tested with an even higher dose, and it's too soon to have results on them.
So they gave us a month's supply here.
The next step is to take some of these patients off their weekly enzyme treatment to see if their bodies can make enough by themselves.
In another 6 months, we'll have a much better sense for the success of this procedure.
Mado says he is hopeful the treatment will succeed.
Hoping that the gene therapy will halt the progression of Hunter syndrome that I have, and that it'll help the younger people.
His role as a medical pioneer, paving the way for others. Kathy Young, Associated Press.
KAABOO returns to Del Mar this weekend. KPBS Arts Calendar editor Nina Guerin says they call it a music festival, but it's really so much more.
Some of the biggest names in music, comedy, and art will be in San Diego this weekend for KAABOO, a 3-day festival at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. It's best to think of KAABOO not as a music event, but as an upscale boutique experience. For the price of a VIP ticket, you'll find everything from gourmet meals, massages, and even a swimming pool. An event like this promises big names, and over the weekend there will be performances by Katy Perry, Imagine Dragons, Foo Fighters, Robert Plant, Jewel, and many more. Even the comedy acts are top-notch, attracting names like Judd Apatow, Craig Ferguson, Whitney Cummings, Kevin Nealon, and Craig Robinson. KAABOO also features unique art installations, food trucks, cocktails, and this is important, clean bathrooms. Also coming to town is the host of The Daily Show, Trevor Noah. The South African-born comedian is known for his social commentary and biting take on politics. He recently released a book that analyzes tweets by President Trump. For his live show, Noah does get into current events, but he also focuses on his childhood growing up under apartheid and learning to adjust to life in America. And don't forget, this weekend is Mexican Independence Day, and there'll be celebrations happening all over the county. One way to experience the holiday is at the Old Globe, where the all-female mariachi band Las Colibri will perform in the Theater Plaza. This free event also features dancing and art and will be hosted by local radio personality Tony Valencia. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
Now here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, Bradley Cooper takes on a silver screen classic, his role in the reboot of A Star is Born. And on Midday Edition, more work but less pay. Another look at why families are paying more even as the median household income rises in San Diego. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/Evening Edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.